Gonna go ahead. All right. So welcome everyone. My name is Nisi. I'm actually a public health nurse, and many moons ago, I was doing some work with American Heart Association, and not to age myself, and they asked me, "Hey, do you know how to work this Facebook thing?" And I started managing a local American Heart Association Facebook page, and it moved into their social media, email campaigns, things like that. And I kind of just have been in that space ever since. So a lot of the content creation I do for my clients, it's for nonprofits, service-based healthcare, but it's really about creating communications that speaks to the audience and gets them to convert in the space that they want to. So for nonprofits, becoming donors, being engaged, participating in events, things of that nature. So um, even though the background is weird, it all fits together perfectly well. Public health is pretty much education. So I love to teach, and so I'm happy to do this. I've been doing coffee and Canva, or Canva and coffee, for about a year. So if you've never participated, just to give you an idea of what to expect, what I do is I just kind of go through some basics on Canva. Like, here are the basics of how you kind of get started, get organized, and then how you can expand on that, how you can, build templates out, change things up. We do a little bit of AI, we do a little bit of content. And so we do these things to make sure that everybody can kind of get on the, at least a solid foundation. Even if you're not the actual person that's creating the content, this kind of gives you an idea of what it looks like, and what steps to take. And if you are the person creating the content, sometimes just a good refresher is always needed. We do this monthly, just about every month, and it's almost always 8 in the morning. I did try to do one in the evening. I might try one of those later on. I'm not sure what we would call it besides coffee. So I'm going to get started. I'm actually going to turn my camera off, just to make sure that there's not any lag. Feel free to drop questions in the chat. I do check them pretty well. And if I'm in a space and you really want me to stop, go ahead and unmute yourself, and ask the question, and we'll make sure that you guys get what you need. It lasts about 45 minutes, my instruction, maybe about 40 minutes. And then the last 15 minutes, what I do is I take volunteers, and we build out content. So be prepared to, ask questions and build some content towards the end. This is quite right. We've still got folks coming in. One more second. All right, I'll get started. So let me get a thumbs up from everyone if you can see my screen, my Canvas screen. Perfect. So one of the things that I will say is, I think you should go ahead and invest in, the professional or the pro version of Canva. If you're a nonprofit or if you're a teacher, it's free or close to free. But what you can do with it and how you can utilize it, it well pays for itself. And the last thing you want is to kind of hit any speed bumps in trying to create content. So the first thing that we always suggest is that, one, if you have your logo, your branding guide already done for you, go ahead and have that in a folder that you can easily access. And so I'm going to kind of walk you through the steps of kind of getting started, and then what it looks like to really maintain, good consistency with your brand, and why that's important. So over here in the top right, there will be a tab that says brand. You want to click on that. This is extremely important because as you're creating content, the one thing that needs to be consistent is your branding. So even if you have multiple programs under your organization that have their own kind of brand, you still want to be able to have those housed in one place. And I'll show you the value of taking the time to build your brand kit first before you start doing any content, or to go back to really building your brand kit so that it's much easier for you to manage all of your content as you're building it. So if you don't have one, what you're going to do, one more pod left. Start in the top and you're going to hit add new. And I'm just going to put training and then today's date. And then you want to, if you haven't added one before, it will give you this guide, this tour, which makes it even more, user-friendly. The easiest thing to do is to add a logo. If you can add a logo, it will pull the colors from your logo, probably as close as possible. And that's really beneficial to you because now you're not trying to figure out what those colors are, especially if you don't have someone in your department that can do that, or if you kind of inherited the logo. Now you don't have to worry about figuring out where I'm going to pull this logo information from. So I'm going to do, let's see, I'm going to pull a pretty easy one, I think. Let me pull a logo that I've used before. It does allow you to drag and drop, which is kind of a new feature. It wasn't doing that before. One of the best features about Canva and their images, it allows you to kind of copy paste, which is great. So let's say you don't have a file of your logo, or you're trying something different or new, you can go to the website, copy paste an image and drop it right into your branding guide or into any work that you're working on. I like to use this when there's like collaboration. So let's say somebody's doing a golf tournament and they have a sponsor. Sometimes the sponsors don't give you their graphics soon enough, but you can go to their website. Usually you can find a high definition logo and you can just copy paste it and put it into whatever you need for your event or collaborative efforts. So this is what I was talking about when I was saying that it provides those colors for you. So I didn't even have to figure out what those colors were, and it automatically gives my colors the name of the file. So you can change the file, you can change the name. Yes, it will be recorded and we will share it. It does sometimes take like 2 hours to drop the recording, not sure why, but it will be shared with everybody. And so let's say you have your primary colors for your organization, and then you have a program that sits under it that has maybe different colors. So you can go in and pull those colors for that other program as you see fit. And if you need to change, this is how you're going to be able to change it. This is the code. This is the one that's most popular if you're not familiar with graphic design. There's another code option. Sometimes there's a little bit of a difference in the coloring depending on what you're using or what software you're using, but for the most part, it will figure out which one you have based on the code itself. And so you can just, add until your heart's desire, whatever colors you want in there, and it will keep it. And so I'll show you in a second why this is important. 1 second to add some more colors in there. And I do try to do this in real time so that you guys can see it doesn't take a lot of time to add those changes in there. They did upgrade kind of how they do their fonts. There used to be like 2 font options. This is absolutely awesome because when you're creating graphics and designs or annual reports or anything like that, you need more than just the two fonts, and you don't always know what font was used before. So this creates consistency and it allows you to use the same fonts over and over and over again. So I'm just going to go in, I'm going to pick some title fonts. I like a good sans and then subtitle. It also tells you like what size you want those fonts to display at, which is also important in consistency in your brand. And then this one I'm gonna pick, let's do, I'm really just picking ones that will kind of be obvious that we've changed it so that you can see it when we go in to create something. These are probably definitely not the ones that I would pick for any type of brand, but just so you can see the absolute change in the font and what that looks like. I would leave, so how it says title, subtitle, heading, you have the ability to like change the name of that. I do not recommend it because when someone else is using it or someone else is creating and you're trying to build your standard, brand design or guide, they don't need to guess. They don't need to know what the actual font name is. They need to know where that font goes because it's already there in Canva. So if you have this as your heading, and you'll see in a second what that looks like. If you have a font that was already done for you and you need to upload it, they do allow you to upload fonts as well. Usually I can go to Microsoft or sometimes I just Google it if somebody has a font that's not in Canva, and you just look for a font that you can download and then you upload it into Canva. And then the same for your photos. And I'll tell you that this is really important. If you have consistent photos with, let's say, um, like your branding or like the outside of your building, and you want to just do like text overlay on an image, an image of your building, this would be a good opportunity for you to add those photos. If you are consistently kind of showcasing the same thing over and over, this is a great place to add those photos. So that way you're not looking for it, searching for it, trying to find out where it's at, none of that stuff. You have it all in your brand guide. And then same for graphics. So if you use a squiggly line, if you use, polka dots, if you use anything that you want to kind of continue to show up and be consistent in your brand, you want to go ahead and upload these. If you had your brand, like your logo branding guide created for you, whoever created it should have given you a file that has all of these things. So you should have your primary logo, secondary logo, maybe a horizontal, a gray, black, white logo, things like that. Upload everything you can into this brand guide because as you build content, you'll need this in order to keep your brand consistent. Um, Another reason for pro is that you can invite people to participate with you, and you can share it much easier. They don't kind of have to jump through hoops. There's a lot of share, work on demand, work at the same time opportunities in Canva now that didn't exist just 6 months ago. So all of these are extremely important to have. I highly recommend you take the time to build this out before you move forward in creating additional content. So I'm going to pause for a second and just go to the chat to make sure if anybody has any questions about your brand guide. All right, we'll keep it moving. So this is the one that I'm going to be using today as we build out content. So when you think about the content that you want to create, um, the first thing that I suggest is, if you don't have a brand guide, if you don't have a one pager that has kind of all of your information in one place, I highly recommend you do this. Because if you need to share your brand colors, any guidance, whether it's, the fonts or your imagery, how you want your images set up, having this is really important. And as you're building content, having a one-page brand guide is really important. So I'm going to show you how to do that. You're simply going to go here and search brand guide. A template will pop up. We're looking for something like this. So you would pick the guide that most resembles your aesthetic for your organization. And there are tons of different guides that you could pick. Just go in and oh, I think it pulled. Yeah, here's one. You just want to find the one that works well for your current brand. Don't make it difficult. Don't try to do anything too far out, or clear is always better than clever when we're talking about branding. And so making sure that anybody that picks up your logo will be able to say, oh, okay, or picks up your brand guide will be able to say, okay, I can be consistent in the messaging because of what's already been provided. And so here's a look at kind of how the aesthetic can look different for each one. And I'm just going to I'll use this one as our starter so you guys can see the importance or the value of that. So we talked about, the building the brand kit and having that ready. And this is why, as you go in and try to change things, you want to be able to pull your brand kit out. And I want to use this one because that's the one we just built. And it has all of the things that go in my brand kit right here. And so you want to make sure that you're using the appropriate logo or the appropriate fonts to make sure that they go wherever you want them to go. When we talked about getting those photos, that's called imagery. And the reason that we want you to pull those photos that you like to see or that consistent is because the second that you put a photo for a post that doesn't go in with the aesthetic of your brand imagery, it's very noticeable. So I'm just going to take this one off, and then I'm going to go and pull an element. And so just because let's say I am a nursery and I sell plants and this is what I'm going for, the aesthetic that I'm going for, just because somebody puts a different type of plant up there doesn't mean it naturally matches your aesthetic, right? And so obviously I'm just, for show, but you can see immediately, like, this is not the same aesthetic as the rest of the images. But what happens more often than not is when people start posting, they just pick any plant, right? Or when people start posting, they pick any type of imagery that looks close to it without referencing their brand guide. And you can tell when you put them together that this one clearly is not in the same category as the rest of them. So I'm going to do a different one so you can see how important imagery is. So let's see, let's do photo. The way to maintain your organization's aesthetic is to be mindful of what your imagery looks like, even in your basic photos. That's 3 different ones. So you can see, I'm gonna make this a little bit smaller. You can see that even though they're all plants, they each have their own aesthetic. Having the aesthetic be the same is the easiest way to have brand consistency. The second that your aesthetic is different, it throws people off. And so my favorite example of that is the Target logo versus the Walmart logo. Like, people know immediately the difference. I know when I see the Target logo what to expect. I can already, capture the experience in my imagination before ever walking into the store. And when I see the Walmart logo, same thing. I already know what to expect. And so it's not just this, well, a plant is a plant, right? And I'm using plant as a default, but it also is, how do you showcase your nonprofit? Let's say if you have a church, how are you taking pictures? Are you having lights up? Is it dark in the space? Is it light in the space? Is it always from the stage? What does that look like? When you showcase people, are people front and center? Are they off to the side? So for example, this image and this image allow for great text overlay. This one, it'll get a little bit complicated. I'll have to figure out where it goes. So just be mindful of that imagery as you are building out your brand guide. We talked about the colors. They're already in your brand kit, and I'll show you how to change them once you pull this template. You'll just go to the color. Here's the colors that we already talked about. Here's another reason it's important to put those photos in there. So once you dropped your, imagery photos here, all of those photos, the colors in the photos will appear here. That's extremely helpful. So if you are tired of, using the same khaki green, you know that you have some wiggle space in these other greens that still fit your aesthetic, but maybe is not the exact brand color. This is really important if you have kind of a Crayola, color brand, those primary colors. It allows you a little bit more wiggle room, but still staying within your color scheme. And then you have your fonts, which is, it speaks for itself. Here's something that's really important about your fonts. It's really important to include numbers and letters, capital and lowercase, and for all of your symbols, at, ampersand, all that stuff, because sometimes the ampersand, the at, they look weird and funky in some fonts, and you don't want to be committed to a font and then realize you can't use the ampersand or, whatever else. So having that in one place is really helpful. So we're using this one as kind of the guide for the content that we're about to create. So before I go any further, are there any questions about the value or the reasoning behind creating this branding guide, like one pager? Or any questions at all? Thank you, Geneva. I'll keep on moving. All right. So now it's time to create content. There's two really great places to start from. I either start from a flyer or I start from an Instagram post. So we're going to start from a flyer first, and I'll show you why. And I love a real estate type flyer because it gives me the opportunity to create multiple kinds of information or posts, but still stay in the same aesthetic. So I'm gonna go, let's just go with this one. Yeah, because the other ones are a little busy. So here's a tip if you have a small team or a solo team and you're trying to be consistent or create newsletters. Start with a newsletter or blog for that month, right? Your primary deposit of information. From that newsletter or blog, break it up into 3 to 7 micro post or micro learning opportunities. And the reason I like to start with a real estate flyer is because it gives me the opportunity to put in one place everything that I want to talk about for the upcoming month. So if you have to share your marketing and communications efforts with a board or C-suite or whatever that looks like, giving them a one pager of what you're going to be talking about for, let's say, October. One, gives them clarity on what to expect. Two, keeps you consistent on your messaging. And three, you can duplicate the information here and copy, rinse, repeat. So you would change, everything to your nonprofit's brand, logo, font, colors, all that stuff. And then your imagery. So the big image that's on a real estate flyer should be your primary messaging for that month. What is it that you really want your audience to know about what's happening, and give them a visual image of that. And the reason that, let me go back to the brand. The reason that you want to have that brand guide with you is so that you stay within whatever your imagery is. So I always have them when I'm working for a client, I always have them side by side. I have the brand guide and then I have whatever content I'm working on to make sure it looks the same. And then you usually have other messages that you want to put in there or get out. One message should always be some type of evergreen information. Your hours, your location, your mission, your vision, values, what you do, why you do, that kind of evergreen, that it kind of is classic and you just can go on rotation. Another thing that should be coming up is anything that has a date attached to it, right? So whether you have an upcoming event or you have a donor opportunity or it's an anniversary or anything like that, you always want to have that in your, big flyer, your big deposit of information. And then the next one, you want to provide that kind of did you know stuff. Did you know that we provide, diapers and formula to over, 200 families last month? Any type of information that would make your audience go, oh, I didn't know that. And then you want to focus on whatever your call to action could be potentially. And so whatever your call to action could be, you want to have it somewhere in this space. And then whatever conversion you're hoping to get, because remember, this is for internal sakes, right? Whatever conversion, we need 8 people to register for the golf tournament. We need 7 volunteers for the next food drive, whatever that is. Because as you create content for that month, you're going to reference these 2 guides to say, okay, did we post anything about needing volunteers? Did we post anything about registration? Or did we only post one time about registration? But it just kind of keeps you and your whole team focused on what you need to talk about for that month. So I'm going to do, let's see, let me get through it and then I'll go back and I'll do samples if anybody has any that they want to see put together. So that's just to go back, have your 1-page branding guide, branding board. Start off for each month of content with a flyer. Use a real estate template so that way you can manipulate it and use imagery, text, messaging, all that stuff into one space. Remember, this is an internal guide for you, your team, or whoever you have to answer to. And then the next thing is when you're ready to start creating your monthly content. Whenever I start to create my monthly content, I always use a square Instagram post. If you use a square Instagram post, it will fit on every type of platform that you want to use. If you use, LinkedIn or something rectangle, then it won't fit on Instagram. It is just so much easier if you're creating content to start with a square Instagram. And then if you need to change it or resize it, it's much easier to go from square to rectangle than it is from rectangle to square. The same is true if you're doing reels. Always start with your basic your basic square. So when I am thinking of the content, right? Okay, what do I need to talk about? And let's say it's, we're going to do a walk for mental health. And I put all that kind of information in here. And I know what I need. I need a certain number of volunteers. I need a certain number of sponsors, things like that. I will go to my Instagram and I will actually start to label the pages. And I will say volunteer. And then I will say sponsor. And I will say whatever it is that we need first to make sure that I've covered all the things that I said are coming up here. This will help you to stay focused, because when you're creating content, usually people can't create everything that they need in a month at one time.
But still be
To do just the stuff for the event, and then just the stuff for the volunteers, and then just the stuff, right? So this is the easy guide for you to kind of get back into wherever you left off. So create just the squares as you need them, label what you need, and I'll show you in a second. I'm just creating multiple squares, and then I take it to the grid view, because what happens in the grid view is it tells me how many I have for each thing. So do I need another volunteer? Do I need, to move this around? But it also tells me if I have too much messaging about volunteers, or if I don't have enough messaging about volunteers. So the numbers can be changed and you can actually fill in or label them. This is also important because when you go to save them, it will actually be saved as this file here. So create the squares that you need. How many posts do you want to print out or put out a month? Consistency's sake, you need to have at least 5 posts a week, to be honest. And this will keep you kind of top of mind as long as it's good quality mix of information. So I might say I need to have 3 posts about the volunteers. I want to have 3 posts about the events. Just do that. And then I want to have one about the kind of did you know stuff, like did you know what we've done or what we did. And then maybe I want to have like meet somebody, meet the board member, meet the new employee, meet the team, meet the behind the scenes kind of thing. The value in this is that if you have to do just the volunteers one day and then 3 days later pick up, you know that you've got to get those 3 for the event out. And it gives you the opportunity to kind of stay organized in your messaging as you're building these posts. You're still referencing your guide. You're still making sure, okay, I got the primary information out, I got the evergreen information, I've got that, urgency or date related information, I've got that did you know, statistic, fact, whatever, and then the call to actions that I need, and then the objective of our messaging. If you don't have an objective when you're creating content, what will happen is you'll just kind of be all over the place. And I'm going to tell you how I know when somebody doesn't have clear objectives when they're posting. When more than 50% of their posts are National Day of, National Breakfast Day, National Puppy Day, National Coffee Day. And they can even do a really good job in trying to like bring or combine it back together with their, nonprofit. But what happens is that doesn't provide for an objective for your audience. Your audience is seeing your post and they don't know what to do with it. Oh, that's cute. It's National Coffee Day, but what do you want me to do about that? Right. So you want to be really mindful to create this flyer so you have those objectives. What do you want people to do? Because when you have the objectives laid out, when it's time to create all that content and you're really trying to fill that space to stay top of mind, you can be strategic in your messaging and your approach and what you say and how you say. And then if you want to add a National Awareness Day, or if there's one that makes sense. So those that are in the mental health and behavioral health space right now, September is Suicide Awareness Month. So it would be appropriate for you to have an announcement that says September is, Suicide Awareness Month. But then what? So you let your audience know that this is the month. And now, what do we want them to do with that? Do we want them to give? Do we want them to hear stories? Do we want them to have resources? So having that objective on that page is what helps you stay in alignment with whatever your marketing objectives are. Okay, I'm going to pause and go to the chat. Are there any questions about what we've done so far?
Nisi, good morning. This is Michelle. Quick question on, I must have missed a sentence or something. On the image that you're showing right now, the house for rent, when you were saying we have all these different types of information and templates, are you saying, I mean, you had a whole bunch of different templates, but in a few minutes ago, you were showing each of the blocks on this image, on this flyer, as the different points, like the evergreen and the call to actions and all that. Are you suggesting you have that, all those different elements in one flyer, or are you saying have different flyers with those objectives?
No, yeah, have all of those objectives in one flyer. So what is your nonprofit? What do you guys do?
Beginning Experience is basically a grief support organization for those who have lost a spouse through death, divorce, or separation.
Okay. So I would, let me just move these around a little bit so you can kind of see visually what I mean. I would go in and I would figure out what my messaging would be for the month of October. We'll just use October. And I would put somewhere in here so you know that this is for October. This is our strategy for October and our messaging. You can always brand it with, your name, organization name, logo, all that stuff. That's fine. No problem there. But this document is so that everybody's on the same page and being strategic. Your first photo would be, let's see if I can really quick find a, and I'm just, grabbing images, right? So that would be the first one. And then your primary messaging, what is it that you want to make sure everybody knows about? Right? So for you, it might be who you are, what you're doing, but it's that meat and potato message that you want to get out for the month of October, that if no one saw anything else, they at least saw this. And this is usually something that is related specifically to the work that you're doing. So any storytelling, any success, any obstacles that your organization has overcome, or it's related to kind of that mission vision stuff of because of us, this is what we were able to do, or this is what is happening in our community, right? And then you
Thank you.
Yep, no problem. You want to put in your evergreen, and I'm just going to draw it out so everybody can see it too. So your evergreen is that static messaging that should always go out. You want it to continuously cycle because you'll have new people that get onto your page or that kind of found you again, that maybe they haven't been on your page in a while. And now they'll be able to, jump in and kind of continue where it goes. I think about when COVID happened, everybody's information was wrong, their hours, their phone numbers, their email address, because everybody was in kind of that pandemic mode, and they weren't thinking about how people can get in touch with them. So you had a lot of service-based organizations that had information on their website and social media platforms that was not current, but having these posts provides that opportunity to make sure it's current. It also reminds people like who you are and what you do. The next one should be anything that's related to dates or like urgency. So if you have an upcoming event, if you have a deadline, if you're trying to meet a goal, I have a lot of clients that are working on their Giving Tuesday stuff. So maybe you want to start mentioning that now so you can nurture those leads. And then the last one you want to put in there is anything that is kind of like really tied to an outcome. So it might not be an event, but it might be a specific outcome, like a survey, or something like that. You can put that in there. And so you have this with your objectives, your, purpose, all that stuff for that month. And then when you are building out the content here, you use this as a reference. So, okay, did we do a good job telling our story? And you go back, no, we don't have anything about the story that we really wanted to highlight or showcase. So now I'm going to make sure I create content about that story. Does that help?
Yes, that's great. Thank
Yep, no problem. All right. Let's see. So, okay, so the next thing that I want to share with you guys are some of the things that can really be helpful. It doesn't have the like sparkly glass slipper, but it's a really helpful tool if you are struggling with content or how to build content. So I will ask for a volunteer to drop in the chat what they do, how they do it at their organization. One more time, first come, first serve, and I'm going to build content for you. Cultural literacy, okay. Not hard at all. Tell me a little bit more about what you do with cultural literacy.
So we provide a signature program during the summer, a 6 weeks cultural literacy enrichment program where we serve K through 12th graders. We hire college age adults to serve as their classroom facilitators or servant leader interns. And we provide books for them to build their home libraries when they're no longer with us. And then during the year, we provide experiential learning opportunities for the families. The requirement for our program is that the parents participate in weekly, we call parent empowerment seminars during the summer, and then monthly hype hash outs during the school year.
Let's see. And the last thing that you messaged your audience was what? Like just any message that you gave them.
The last message was centered around Black Philanthropy Month.
Okay. So when you get to a point where you're like, we need to message, but we don't want to kind of regurgitate kind of the same thing, or we need to be more creative, or whenever you get to that point, or just thinking ahead, right? So let's say you're creating this content 2 or 3 months ahead of time so that it gives you a chance to kind of really work on it. Because we all know we do last minute content creation, right? So if I want to say, that if I want help creating content from Canva, what I want to do is I want to hit this little plus sign. It's going to give me what's called Magic Write. This is the AI component. And sorry about that. Magic Write gives me the AI component where they're going to kind of spit back out whatever I ask of it. Okay, got it. All right. So I'm gonna say, always start with a list. And I don't know what it is. It's that Southern manners in me, but I'm always kind to any AI feature that I use because at some point they're gonna take over. So please provide, let's say, 10 topics about the value of reading and yeah, and movie. And I'm just gonna see if it spits anything out. Okay, so it spit out a couple of things. Oh, let's change this because you can't really read that. Oh, here's what I was talking about when I was saying don't change the name in your brand kit so you know what it actually will look like. This is what I was talking about here. Okay. So it spit out a couple of things. How reading can inspire, role of literacy and promoting, using books to teach children about giving back. Let's say, let's use this one. How philanthropy can support literacy initiatives, right? Because that's probably the fundraising component of what you do, I'm guessing. Okay. So then what I'm going to do, now that I have this list is great because it gives me kind of different ideas or different perspectives of how to write about the same thing. I'm going to go down and I'm going to do another magic write. And I'm going to say, please create a blog about, and then I'm going to copy paste the prompt that it just gave me. Oh, let me change that font. So now it's let me make that a little bit smaller. Because that's almost just too, that's ridiculous. Okay, now it's given me a blog. It gives me the blog. Please don't just copy paste and push whatever any AI gives you. You want to make sure that you read it and it's in the same tone as your organization because it is AI. It's automatically coming up with this information and it's a very generic robotic response. So let's say I'm like, okay, this is great. This is great information. I love this. This is good stuff. I want to keep everything that's in here. But what I also need are social media posts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this first paragraph. I'm going to copy it. And here's how you get to the magic write. You just go down, hit the plus button, and then click on magic write. And it'll be a pop-up box. And then you just put your prompt in there. So I'm going to say, please create, let's do 5 social media posts about, and then I'm going to copy paste the paragraph that we just had. So when you go down, like when you enter to go down like you would in a document, the plus sign will pop up. See that? It will just pop up wherever you are and you hit it and then the magic button will pop up. So now I have, let me do this. Now I have 5 social media posts. Well, now these 5 social media posts, you know what I can do? One, I can go in, I can copy it and I can drop it into one of my things that I moved too fast. I can drop it into one of the posts that I'm supposed to do. Right? I mean, make it make sense. Make sure this one matches whatever you said it is, or create another one and add a different title to it. But now I have a blog, at least 5 social media posts. But if you think about it, technically for each paragraph, I could probably pull 5 posts, right? So for each one, I could probably pull 5, and you probably will get 3 good ones if you pull 5. If you do about 7 or 10, you'll probably get 5 good ones. Once you hit past that like 15 mark on a list, it just kind of regurgitates the same thing. But you can still try it to see, what you like and what you don't like. You can even ask for it to include different things. So I can say, okay, I really like the way that this post looks. Let me create a microblog or something of that nature. So I'm going to copy that, go down, hit my plus sign, go to my magic right, and I'm going to say, please create a micro, or I'll just say short message about, and I'm going to copy paste that social media post and include a call to action to register for XYZ event. And let's see what we get. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, it's in Open New Doc. Sorry about that. So this is okay, but I really wanted something a little bit longer, right? Like maybe something to post on LinkedIn where my readers are at. So I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to do magic right again, and I'm going to say expand. Now I have kind of regurgitated, reused, recycled, because I went from a blog to a post and I really like the post. So now I'm going to take that post and I'm going to expand and make a different type of literature. So I want to show you one more thing. Let's see, me go back to here. So let's say that you and your team came up with a bunch of different topics that you wanted to put out there. Going into Doc again, I'm going to take that same information. I don't know why it keeps doing that. This isn't our first rodeo. Sorry about that. Usually once you've done this a couple of times, it will not continue to populate. This is just ridiculous. Let me see if I can just get it from here. So I'm going to go into just typing or just pasting the list. So I sat with my team, we made this list and everything else, and we're happy with everything that's on the list. Clearly that's going to bother me, so 1 second. All right. So we're happy with everything that's on the list, and we're like, okay, this is great. Let's start to create content around it. Up in the top right is the button that says convert to presentation. I'm going to click on that. And it is going to put your list of topics into presentation format. This is still kind of in beta, so you have a way to kind of pick the ones that you think are in alignment. If you need to change something up, it allows you to change it. If you have 2 brands, like a program and your primary, you can change that as well so that it actually is a little bit different. If you need to switch your palette, you can change your palette so it switches it, just to kind of give you an idea of what you could do. The only thing I will say is this, because it's in beta, if you see something that you kind of like, go ahead and click on it, because I don't know if you remember, but remember these were not the colors and things that and the font that was there before, and now it's gone. So if you're thinking, oh, I kind of like that one, but I'm not sure, go ahead and hit create my presentation and then do it again, because you're not going to get it back. Chances are most likely you're not going to get it back. So I'm just going to go with, I'll go with this one. And then I'm going to hit create my presentation. And then I'm going to resize, because remember, we want everything in square. And Instagram post square, and just resize, not copy and resize. But now I have all of those things that were in that list, that first list that it gave me. I have all of that kind of already done. So a great way to use this tool is if you go to your evergreen information and make a list, you can go in and then it's one and done kind of thing. Make your list, convert to a presentation, and it's done for you. Clearly, you can go in and change the design or background and things like that, but for the most part, it is done for you. Okay, so we're gonna start fresh with a new doc. And I did see another organization drop in their information. Brittany, volunteer coordinator for domestic violence shelter. Would you like for me to do a sample using your organization?
I would love that.
Okay, awesome. So this is how I would start it. Just assume that I already have the brand guide. I already have my monthly flyer. Like I already kind of know exactly what I'm going to do. So you want to be able to kind of just jump in and get started on your content, right? I would start here. And when you go here, the first thing I would do is start with the list. And so I would say, let's say, let's do a big list, 20 reasons to support. What's the name of your organization?
Benton County Friends of the Family.
Okay.
Whoa.
So remember I said like it's gonna spit it out, but sometimes what will happen is the actual like information kind of gets watered down a little bit when you have too many. Sometimes not, it just depends. Okay. So when it spits it out, it's gonna be generic. That's just how it is. You want to pick one that you're like, you know what? I really like this messaging. I'm just gonna go with the first one. You're going to copy it, and then you can go down to the bottom and then do the magic right again and say, create that blog. And now you have the blog. I totally picked the wrong font to sample with. Lesson learned. But now you have the blog. Once you have the blog, pick a paragraph and make your social media post. So even though it's kind of generic information, it gives you an idea. Okay, so here's a good example of what I mean when I say they kind of spit back generic stuff. We don't have hashtags, there's no emojis, there's no none of that stuff. So what I am gonna do, let's see if it will work, because again, we're still kind of in that beta space. Now, this is if you're using Canva. If you're using ChatGPT, you really don't have to worry about kind of fluffing it too much. Magic Right. And I'm going to say regenerate using hashtags and emojis. Let's see if it'll spit it back out at me. Nope. Let's see. Oh, yep, we got it. All right. Let me change that font again. But do you see how you can just continuously pull content from one thing? If you're
Yeah,
not
that's
sure where to
super cool.
go or where to start, I would go to your website, go to your About Us page, pull a paragraph from your About Us page and say, please generate 10 social media posts about, copy paste that paragraph and let it continue to kind of work and give you information and stuff like that. So, you know, there's nothing better than something that you can just copy paste and personalize. And that's what this will provide for you. I know we just went over our time. Let's see. Any questions?
So cool.
So I'm gonna put in my contact, and when you guys get the email, it'll have my contact information. It'll have the next date, and it will have if there's any like tools or tips, the recording, all that stuff. We'll put it in here, and then I will also have the link to what we just created, so that you can go in and copy paste it and redo it. So for those of you that I used as an example, you guys can just, you know, snatch it up and use it in Canva for your own organization. See, any questions? Want to respect everybody's time. I appreciate you staying after the extra 4 minutes with me. Let's see. You guys are more than welcome. We do this every month. So in the email, you'll get another invite for the next month. It might not be listed on TechSoup, but you'll get the invite for the next month.
You do a different topic within Canva, or is it a repeat session?
So usually what I do is for 2 months, I repeat. So it'll be this one again, kind of the same thing for next month. And then, so that will be October. And then, so November, I think we're going to work on kind of the special effects and apps. So a little bit of the AI, but also with the apps that are in Canva, like creating the QR code, the text to image, just so you can explore some of those things and what it means to go into it, how to save documents, how to collaborate, use a whiteboard. So it's like Canva 2.0. So the first 2 months is the same, and then the next 2 months will be the same. I don't think I'll have a class in December. So November and January will be the same. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. You guys are so welcome. So welcome. It'll take a couple hours to get the recording, and as soon as it's done, I'll send you guys all the information. How can you show embed a link or image to make the image clickable? Yeah, so Canva has almost to a fault created let's see, let me find a link really quick. So if I click on something, I want to press these dots here, and then here's your link right here. Click the link. paste, whatever it is that you want it to link to. Hit enter. You can have a display mode or not. Hit done. And then when you are sharing, like you save it as a PDF and you're sharing it, this is clickable. So let's say if you have something with a bunch of programs, you can make all of these a link to each of your programs or registration or anything like that, but it sits in a PDF. If you do an image, the whole image is the clickable thing. So that's the only kind of trick to that. The whole image is clickable if it's a, just an image file, but if it's a PDF, then you can make any of the elements clickable. You can make literally any element clickable. They also have where they kind of embed, let's see if I can show you, like this. So you can make it clickable like that. And then sometimes it will work. This is a little bit in their beta. Oh wait, I just want to paste it. Yeah, sometimes what'll happen is it'll allow you to just paste there it goes. So this is how you just drop it in if you just wanted the actual link to be dropped in a document. So I just copy paste that same URL and it gives that kind of Facebook vibe look to it, but it's like a sneak peek of the embed, and you can make that whatever size you need to, and then it's clickable if you save it as a PDF, and then you don't have to create a document. So you can do that for your own website stuff as well. And I think I answered all the other questions. I think so. All right. Well, you guys have a great day. I hope to see you. If not next month, I hope to see you for November. And I look forward to any questions or comments you have once I send the recording out. Thank you guys for coming by. I really appreciate you stopping in, and have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
Of course.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.